welcome to episode 11 of Zooming into Focus, the podcast that explores and highlights the research and training developed by the Virginia Commonwealth University Rehabilitation Research and Training Center on the employment of persons with intellectual and developmental disabilities project. I am your host, as always, Lucian Friel from VCU RRTC. Today we are joined by Brandon Jenkins. Brandon is an advisory committee member for this grant. They are specifically working with Alyssa Brooke on Research Study 2, which you'll remember from Episode 3, is the study focusing on the impact of employment on quality of life for individuals with IDD. And they're here to talk about their own experience, as well as what it's like to work on this particular study. Welcome to the podcast, Brandon.
Thank you.
It's great to have you here. I know that we talked about this a little bit before we started recording, but would you like to tell us how you felt when Alyssa asked you if you would be interested in doing a podcast and why you chose to take us up on this opportunity?
I have seen some videos on YouTube how people learn how to be on podcast and sharing their thoughts and feelings and giving advices. So I thought it'd be a good idea for me to try for a new experience in my life.
Excellent. Well, thank you for coming on to share your story. For starters, can you tell us where you work currently and what you do at that job?
I work at Altria. It's similar to the name Phyllis Morris. They're a tobacco company, but I work at their headquarters. So what I do there is that I help assist with their assessments or their assignments if they have trouble they need more help on. But I also help out with inventory management for our swag items that's needed for new hires like employees or interns or employers welcoming to the company. And we make sure it's a safe space environment for those who are willing to learn, willing to learn what Altria has in store.
Excellent. Um, so how satisfied are you with that type of job? How um, and kind of why do you feel like this job is a good match for you?
I'm still figuring out if it's a good match because I do like the environment and working on engaging with some of my coworkers because most of them work from home and some of them are not in Richmond. So I'm doing my best to not isolate myself as much as I used to because I know I'm not much of a people person to talk to since childhood. So I'm willing to come out of my comfort zone one step at a time to engage with my coworkers as I can. And I do like the job where I'm at. It's just learning how much I can get from liking to loving it. It just takes time.
Right. Yeah. And I know that that's got to be difficult too with, having some remote workers and in-person workers. I think, a lot of people are having that same sort of issue of balancing, their sort of socialization part of it. I know I do as well. So I don't think you're alone on that. How do you feel like your skills and abilities are being utilized in your job?
Well, I'm using the skills I have never thought I used before, like say data entry, scanning documents and doing packaging orders for like items that's given to new employees or candidates or employers and doing auditing for like paper filing or interview scanning so I can make sure it's organized.
Sounds like a super important job. I know that's definitely high end level there with that big company like that. Are there any new areas that you would like to learn?
So far, I like where I'm at. It's just when I try to learn some new skills, I might feel like I have to leave the department where I'm at to go to that department because we're learning to do using AI technology like Copilot with Microsoft. We use it to help out what kind of skills we needed for our job task to make it more easier and comfort, like having your own virtual assistant. So we can make sure we keep our work-life balance good and not stressful and not have too much problems or situations on our plate.
Excellent. I like that you brought up kind of the work-life balance too, and I know AI is helping, speed up the process a lot with a lot of, some of the tasks at our everyday jobs. But sort of going in, diving into that work-life balance, do you participate in any clubs or activities in either inside or outside of work?
Inside of work, I do my best to attend with I do my best to engage with my coworkers if there's like a fundraiser event or a community gathering we have every year so that we can like engage, get to know our employees that are like across the world who works with Altria. And we usually have like a big event together at King's Dominion in December. It happens every once a year, but it was a good experience, and we always do make time for in-person meetings so we can like learn more, get to know each other and what skills we bring, and then afterwards we do like an evening event. But outside of work, it helps me like coming out of my comfort zone, taking a step at a time, like joining walking groups or bowling league events, but I also make time to like find stuff like community events I do for like I'm part of the LGBTQ plus, so I'm trying to like engage with the community as much as I can, just trying to see which events is like a fit for me and which not a fit for me, so I can like learn what it feels like if even if it's not work related.
Okay. And what outside of clubs and stuff like that, what do you like to do in your free time?
So far, I usually be at home watching TV or movies, listening to music, but I also make time to like learn some baking or cooking skills for myself so I can like make it healthier as much as I can instead of like going out. I go out maybe twice a month because I know things are like increasing prices and stuff in stores, so I'm trying to make sure I have like home goods, homemade stuff at home so I can learn to fix myself because I did realize that if I feel stressed and I'm cooking or baking, it calms me down. It I found baking very fun and stress free.
That's awesome. You have to bring in some of your baking or cooking. Love to try it.
Well, I'm making sure I get the recipes right so I can make sure it's nice and perfect. I know perfection's like good, but it's not all good, but I do my best.
So, how has your free time sort of changed since you started working?
Before Altria, I worked at a healthcare environment many years ago when I started from project search, going to internship and now employment. I wasn't much outgoing as much as I could because I was like still learning some more about myself in my 20s. I still feel like I'm back to that stage, but starting over as much as I can. But long story short, I thought it would be a good fit. Then after we got hit by COVID, it helped me realize it didn't. And my father was experiencing health issues along the way, but he's he's no longer with me in the family. He's passed
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
almost 5 years, so I'm doing my best to make sure not to isolate myself as I did in the past. So I'm learning how to be out as much as I can, not too much, but and also welcoming those in my circle.
Yeah. Do you have any advice for anybody, who might be going through a hard time like that, as far as trying to get back out and being social?
My advice is I'm trying to make sure I get the advices correctly and not too harsh or bad. But I would say, like, don't rush, be patient, and just continue to learn about yourself. It can't happen overnight. Just learn about yourself first, and then what you bring outside of your home to work or places you like to go, just bring that with you and see what you love about yourself while you're out and take it from there.
Yeah, that's great advice. That is great advice. Now that you have a job and you have a paycheck, do you spend your time differently when you're not at work? I know, you talked about taking up cooking and stuff like that, but is there anything as far as like taking more time with family or doing different activities?
I do make sure I spend time with my family. If my mother calls me and they're doing something, I make sure I attend and participate. Because over the years, I felt like I wasn't communicating with my family well because I felt like an outcast in the family or an outsider. So I'm trying to make sure I don't go back to the past so I can move forward in the present and see what the future has in store. So I can like be very close with my family as much as I can. So far in my family, my mother is my best friend, even though I don't see it in the past, and I'm learning how to let that come to surface now so I can like know how important she is to me.
That's excellent. That's excellent advice too. I think for everyone to, have that person that they recognize is really important to them and cherishing that. Um, so this is kind of an open-ended question, and you can take it anywhere you want. But why do you work?
Because I can't let anyone do stuff for me all the time. I have to learn how to do stuff on my own because one day if you lose someone you love and they're not there to help you, how else you're supposed to survive in the world? Yes, it's hard and challenging, but if you find the good sources like help find good balance for maintaining money and working on budgets. And if it's something that you want, you just work as hard as you can, but not too hard, just to like know what you want and what your desires are, and you just take it from there. So I was given an advice like write down what my needs and wants are and speak on it and work on it one day at a time to see how well it turns out.
Okay, and how do you feel about having a job?
I thought it would be hard and challenging, but if I work hard as much as I can and receiving a good reward, it'll be very exciting and learning about what my victories are and what are my losses are,
Hmm.
so I can learn how to be more independent for myself. So what I do is like do my best to not try to do stuff like overnight. I just take my time learning because if I learn one thing one day and I thought I would get it right the next day, it's not going well. So my goal is to like take one step at a time to learn the task. And if I start to learn like riding a bike from it, it'll help me it'll help me more how to memorize it each day I go. So what I just like so I wouldn't just be lost in space again, forgetting how I do it. So I make sure I write it down as much as I can or type it down so I can make sure I don't forget it.
Okay, that's definitely a good tip too. I think for anybody at work, making sure you're jotting down what's going on and remembering those types of things. What what is your favorite part about having a job, and then what is your least favorite part of the job? You can answer that either in either order that you want.
What I like about the job is making sure I engage with my colleagues as much as I can, and if I have any problems, I can ask them if they know anything about this the question or assessment or something they have little experience of or they have more experience on. I just ask for them for help. Because doing it on my own is challenging, and I feel like I will get lost in space if I don't know how to do it. But it's best to have someone there to help me learn how to do it. The least part is not having a good teamwork environment. And I felt like if the job was stressful, I would feel like I would feel like I would like get a headache or I feel like I might melt down. And I'm trying to make sure I balance to like not having that in public. If I felt it, I would ask, I need a moment, and I find a quiet, open space and just let it out without anyone seeing.
Okay. And how social is your workplace? Like, do you have friends at work? Do you feel included at work in team activities and social events?
I do feel included in teamwork events as much as I can, but I do learn about what my strengths and weaknesses are. What my strengths are working with someone one at a time and see how the task will work. But my weakness is doing it in front of like public speaking to people and working with multiple people at a time. It's too much for me to handle. Like if there's like a long line of people coming one at a time, then it would feel discomforting for me. Cause my thing is I'm not good with like fast-paced workplace environments because they drain me like very quickly if we get busy or if we get very like stressful or busy and we're trying to help people as much as we can. But my strengths are if I work in a calm or steady environment, it helps me get the job done. Because I don't like rushing things like I did in the past. I like to make sure I make time for helping someone and make time for my other task to make sure. Because if I don't do my own task, then I feel like I'm not going to get that done.
Gotcha. How often do you interact with your colleagues at work? Do you see them outside of work at all?
I do not see them outside of work, like at a grocery store or in one of the events, like that's not work related. But if it's like, I do my best to engage them if we do like a work team event for like going out to a restaurant or an what kind of events we have, like King's Dominion and our next teaming event we're having coming in a week or so. So we can I can do my best to engage them as much as I can. But the downside is I can't compare to what they have because some of them are like married and I'm not. So I'm trying to like engage with them as much as I can without asking personal questions like how long you've been married to someone or what you do, like what you both do together. So I'm making sure it's like casual, friendly, and more engaging as much as I can. Because if I get stuck for like 5 questions or answers, then I feel like that's all I got. So I'm seeing how to keep the conversation going without doing the small talk.
Right. So it's kind of like trying to find sort of that common ground. You're saying like, well, if they're married and I'm not, it's kind of just trying to figure out like, okay, well, what do we have in common? And then going from there. Is that,
Exactly.
yeah, awesome. And, as far as work goes, like, do you feel supported by your colleagues and your supervisors at work?
So far, I have. It's just making sure that I just be part of the team as much as I can and make sure that if I'm going through something or something happened at work, I want to make sure that I have someone in my corner making so I don't have to do stuff on my own all the time. But it's always best to have help no matter how much the situation is. You can't do everything by yourself. You always need to know who your friends, who your coworkers are to make sure you have good resources and not be alone all the time.
Right. So do you feel comfortable like if you're having an issue just going like a work issue going up to a colleague and just asking for help?
In my past work years, I felt like I could have, but I still had trouble doing that. But in my current job, I feel like I can, just like I don't want to drop everything on my plate to their plate. So I'm making sure like if I come with something that's if I across something that I don't know, I make sure I ask them so I can make sure if I get it right, then first, if I ask them first, then I will see how I can do it myself. And if I get stuck on it again, then I'll see if they can help me out one more time.
We talk a lot about supported employment in this podcast, but where do the experts get their information from? Well, one place is the brand new Quality Supported Employment Services Handbook for Employment Support Professionals, the second edition. This handbook gives VR providers the practical tools, strategies, and confidence to help job seekers succeed in competitive integrated employment. Designed as a complete up-to-date guide to supported employment, it walks professionals through every step of the process, from building detailed job seeker profiles and developing employer relationships to delivering effective on-site training and long-term follow-along support. So whether you're just getting started or looking to sharpen your expertise, this handbook is your go-to resource for providing high-quality, person-centered employment services that can lead to meaningful outcomes. Order your copy today at vcurrtc.org/store. And now back to the podcast. So since starting work and maybe not necessarily in this job particular, but just overall, what changes have you noticed in yourself since you've been working?
So far, what I've learned is that what changed is kind of like working on getting back into reading. I wasn't a big fan of that growing up because it was much more about what people say in the past that I can't relate. But if I find something good to read, it's like a memoir or a graphic novel or anything that's like that caught my interest, I just like go for it. And what else I do is like one thing I learned, I can't wait for everyone all the time. So I just learn how to do stuff on my own by taking one step at a time, even though it's not work related. But if I rush into it, that will be a bad sign. So I'm learning to take my time as much as I can because I'm an easygoing person. It's just not easy for me to open up in case if like someone sees me as what they see as their preference, and I felt like maybe I could give them a chance, but if I find out the truth about who they are, then it would affect my life like it did in my childhood. So I'm
Right.
learning to take time to like find the groups of people who are like I'm compatible or share chemistry with so I can see who's worthy of my friendship circle. I have trouble with trust issues, so I'm trying to not let it go on as much as in life.
Right. And have you noticed any changes in your confidence?
I've learned like I can't go out and do stuff all the time because they're like everything costs money. So I make sure that if I go out maybe once or twice a month budgetly, then it will be a good starting point because everything that's going on since COVID, it's been a lot, but I'm making sure that I don't keep myself isolated, just go out as much as I can, not too much, and just enjoy my own company as much as I can. If anyone sees me as I am today, then I will give them a chance.
Right. And so, do you have a support network at work and home that you feel comfortable to go to if you run into a challenge?
At work, I feel like I do. It just depends on who I go to. I know my supervisor is one, and my coworkers, I'm trying to not be hesitant about that, but I do be confident about or caution of who I go to, because given my past experience at work, it was not my former job. It wasn't like where I'm at now. But
Right.
at home, I do feel my mother and stepfather are one who I go to, and my aunt and uncle. It's from my mom's side of the family, I feel like I can go to. My dad's side, it's still a work in progress. Because when I was young and growing up now, my mother always tell me if anything happens to her or my father, then my brother and I will have to be there for one another.
Hmm. Right.
With my brother, it's kind of challenging with him, but it's still a work in progress.
Okay. Well, speaking of family, how do they feel about you having a job?
They feel happy and excited for me, and they also know that if it doesn't work out, always have a plan B to like find other places to work. Because at first I thought healthcare was one, but I thought I would work there till I would retire or something. But since COVID hit at us, then it made me realize it wouldn't work out. So I thought there would be other options for my working career to see how it works. But they are proud of me, and I do make sure I tell them that what I don't like when finding a job, they have to learn to accept it. The thing is about the difference between me and my family is that I'm part of the neurodiversity and they're not. They also have to know that we all are human, but we don't share the same personality and experiences than some people do. We may share some things in common, but not all common. Because the thing is about the neurodiversity, we experience stuff that's troubling our mental health, like being in crowds, being in big open spaces. Some of us like that, but some of us like quiet spaces where we can feel calm and confident for ourselves. And we do our best to tell people in our family and community of what we are, what we represent of ourselves. But if they are comfortable with it, that's fine. If they don't, then you just have to move on from that.
Right. So, what would you say to other people with disabilities who might be interested in getting a job, but maybe they're hesitant about it or they're worried about it? What type of advice would you give to those people?
I would say if they can write, do journaling or write down stuff that you want or what you need in your life. Write down like probably 5 or 10 needs and wants and just learn about yourself as much as you can. But we all know Social Security can't help us throughout all through our lives. We have to make sure that we make sure we can stand on our own 2 feet as much as we can. And if those in wheelchairs, we have to see how we can help them out. But my advice is write down about yourself and what do you see in yourself. It doesn't have to be like a higher degree for college or something like you try to do in grade school. Just take your time, take a breather, and just continue to learn what you like. It doesn't have to be like what other people do at work. It just be your own working experience. But you have to find a job that is like a good fit for you so you wouldn't have to like walk in unexpectedly and find out it wasn't a good fit. That's
Right.
not a good sign.
So, what would you tell businesses about why they should hire people with disabilities, or what advice would you give to businesses that want to hire people with disabilities?
For those, why they should hire people with disabilities is because the reason they should hire them because they have to learn how to take care of themselves if they don't have anyone around them. But if they do, then it's best to seek advice from either family or resources with like job search. They can help as much as they can to find jobs to make sure that's right and good. But for the businesses, they have to make sure that it is not a hate crime environment or discrimination. It has to be a safe space for those with disabilities so they can feel more at home or or just in a safe place. My advice is make sure that you are there for your coworkers, either their disability, if they're disability or not. Make sure you are there to help them if they feel like if they are being harassed from a coworker or harassed by a customer. You have to make sure you're there to help them, making sure that you can help explain what they have and what they can bring and what they can't help, what they cannot bring. So if you start to feel that in the workplace, this is for anyone in the disability or anyway, make sure you have the right source of people. Because everyone's not going to be there for you in the workplace. They all have their own lives like you do, but make sure you find the right coworker who can be like your best friend. And if the other coworkers have a problem with that, then get make sure you find an open space to find out if they're the right fit or not. So my thing is for the businesses is like make sure it's not a hate crime against people with disabilities like it is for like other hate crimes and other stuff. Because if you find out that it's a non-safe environment and it's full of harassment and bullying, you don't want to work there.
Right. Yeah, absolutely not, right? Like, definitely wanting an inclusive environment, I think, is important, um, for any business, right? Because if you have employees who feel included, I think that relates probably to the customers. If customer facing, they'll see that and feel that as well. That they are also, being accepted for who they are, which I think is super important. So here's an interesting thing. It's kind of a big reveal here at the end. Every question that I've just asked you, you and a team helped create for research study too. So let me ask you about that. Like, these are really great questions, and it's interesting. Was it interesting for you to kind of answer them, being that you helped put them together?
Well, I'm trying to make sure I don't make it like giving my past work experience. Some of it was good, some of it was bad. I don't want to put all the bad things in it, but I just want to make it like a good, I would say like a balance, writing so I can make sure it's not too negative or bad.
Right,
So what I like about doing with the giving advice about my work experience and stuff, I want the future generations of people with disabilities to make sure that they don't go through the same stuff that I have been through or others before me went through in past of work, like in school. Because once you graduate from high school or college, it'll still feel like you're at school, but in a working environment, like you have to work all day and there are holidays you can't just have off. You have
right,
to schedule time for vacation and so you can relieve yourself.
right. So, of all of the questions that I asked you today, and then like because you had a part in creating these, what is your favorite question that kind of encapsulates everything as far as like quality of life goes when it comes to employment?
The social clubs and or activities with coworkers or if not with coworkers is one of my favorites. And there are others that I try to see which one was it. But right now that was my only first question is to find out like I know some people say that having a best friend at work is cool and all, but how will you know if they're like your best friend if they're like outside of work?
Right, right,
So my thing is to like, if you have a best friend at work, that's fine. But if you see them outside of work, you can communicate with them. It's just making sure that they're the right fit for you.
right. Finding that sort of common ground too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Brandon, thank you so much for coming in today and for sitting down with us and talking about your work experiences, and also for helping out with the research study itself. These are really great questions, and I really was excited to ask you these questions, considering that you're one of the people that came up with them. So, it kind of took that burden away from me for coming up with questions. So thank you for that.
You're
Um,
welcome.
and hopefully, if you don't mind, you stop by down the road, and we'll talk a little bit more about work experiences, work life, and then also your experiences being a part of the research study. Does that sound good?
Of course.
Awesome, awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, Brandon.
Thank you for having me. I really had fun.
And thank you all for joining us today. The contents of this podcast were developed under a grant from the National Institute on Disability, Independent Living, and Rehabilitation Research, NIDLR grant number 90RTE M0013. NIDLR is a center within the Administration for Community Living, the ACL, Department of Health and Human Services, HHS. The contents of this podcast do not necessarily represent the policy of NIDLR, ACL, HHS, and you should not assume endorsement by the federal government. Again, thank you for joining us.